My name is Blair Meerfeld. I'm ceramic department chair at the Art League. And today I'm going to throw a picture. So I take this lump of clay and I center it. And in theory you want to get it just like the wheel on your car. And I think centering's overrated. You want it pretty close to being perfect. It's got to have a little wobble in it just to have some vitality and life. And I think since we're making things by hand, we want a little gesture and movement in them. All right. Now we open this up. And there are a million ways of doing all this. I teach people how I do it. And if you find a better way that's more effective, do it. I'll show you the basics here. I'm going to go all the way down, save about ½ an inch for a bottom on this thing. I'm going to open it up. I don't use pictures, I just like the form. I think probably 98% of the time pictures become vases. Just a theory. But there was a time in our society before plastic and glass and metal that pictures were made out of clay. But when you think a gallon of liquid's about 8 or 8.5 pounds, and then you've got about 8 pounds of clay, that's a lot of weight to carry around just to pour orange juice. Now the top undulates a little bit, and I'm going to bring that into play when I make the lid. I want it to keep doing that. And right now I'm just concentrating on getting the walls the thickness I want. Because it's taller, it's easier for me to stand up. And I use a rib because I want to start smoothing this surface out. I find those throwing ridges kind of corkscrew-like to be a little distracting. So now I'm going to start getting the walls about the way I want them, thickness, and smoothing that out a little bit. I try and make a point of having the collecting water taken out of the bottom. In a nutshell, if it sits there, the clay gets softer, and the more water it absorbs, the more it has to shrink when it dries. And if it shrinks excessively, obviously cracks can start to happen. So I try and use as much or as little as possible, water that is. I want to define a foot because this is kind of a large, wide bottom piece. I want it to be grounded visually. So I'm going to put kind of a curve down there. With a wooden tool we call a rib. And a rib's just a term for any kind of a shaped, rigid piece you can hold against it. Now I'm just going to go down there and kind of force this, and I'll cut it off and clean it up in a minute when I'm done. I want it to undulate and move. I don't like any static lines in my work, vertically or horizontal. And I want this to kind of flop around a little bit. And again, it's that sense of gesture I'm after. And I like to chatter this a little bit. Get some activity in the surface. It's subtle, but it tends to show up and read after the piece has been fired. So I'm going to start defining a bit narrower neck here, but I'm going to keep it kind of mechanical and crisp and smooth. Now, I mentioned that undulating top before. I want to catch the high spot and just start throwing that up a little bit. And I want to emphasize that and exaggerate it. And I'm going to use that in a second. And that's going to define where the spout's going to be. And I do this chamfered top on there. In a lot of ways, it lends another surface. You have exterior, interior, but here you have a whole nother plane you can kind of play with. You can either decorate it or not, but I want to establish this kind of chamfered edge to the interior. And I'll soften that just a little bit here. Okay. And now I'm just about ready to pull a lip on this. And I do want to swell this. See how I'm putting a slight convex shape on it? It's not a straight hard cylinder. I want a bit of a belly in it. So I can just hold my finger inside a little bit against this rib. And there we go. Now the trick is pulling spouts. If you do it with one fluid movement and walk away from it, you're done. That's best. If you pet it to death and go, that's not exactly what I wanted, I want to change it, it becomes overworked. And I want a crisp, spontaneous statement in the spout. So I picked the high point on that. It shouldn't be too hard to do. I'm going to say it's right about here. And now I'm just going to start working that up a little bit, emphasizing it even more. And then the trick is, I think anyway, I just want to go way down like yay, make that statement, and get out. So I'll just clean this up just a little bit down here. And a lot of these little bits of clay, it's better to take them away after it's set a little bit. So now all I have to do is draw a wire under this, and it's done. And it'll be, when it's done, probably, a gallon and a half, something like that. But that's kind of a basic picture thrown in large scale, so across the room you can see it. You guys probably want to start with a ball of clay about the size of a grapefruit or less. There you have it.